Konnichiwa, gakushusan no minasan.
Today we're going to learn about Japanese terms associated with antinatalism, the view of procreation as unethical. These are terms you might not come across in a different context in your language learning journey, and the point of having this video relate them to an unconventional topic is to make them stick in your mind better by tying them to something notably eccentric. So without further ado, let's start with the basic terms and break them down into their components. First off, Han Shusho Shugi means antinatalism. The three components to be aware of are Han, Shusho, and Shugi. Han means against or anti, Shusho means birth, Shugi means principle or ism. So you could say that Han Shusho Shugi means the against birth principle, or in other words, antinatalism. Han Shusho Shugi is the standard term for antinatalism in Japanese, although certain Japanese antinatalists, such as the organization ANJ Antinatalism Japan, use a secondary term to describe it. Mu sei shoku shugi. Mu means none or lack of, sei shoku means reproduction, and as we've already established, shugi means principle or ism. Together, Musei Shoku Shugi roughly translates to non-reproductionism. The reason for the secondary term is the view of the former term as being anthropocentric, ningen chushin teki, misunderstood, gokai sareta, negative sounding, hitei teki. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, it's time to dive into the concepts of doi, Hitaisho, Jigoku no Kanosei, Chikyu Ondanka, and Oyako no Kaiso, regarding how they relate to the topic. We will look at these things and learn how useful vocabulary surrounding them work, and do a shadowing exercise at the end of each. Dai ichi no concepto, doi, consent. Doi is Japanese for consent. Do means the same and I means intent, so it basically means the same intent etymologically, which together creates the Japanese word for consent, doi. You might think the Japanese word for consent would be consento, but strangely enough, consento actually means power outlet in Japanese. It is called that because it is borrowed from the term concentric plug, which is the type of plug and socket that was introduced to Japan during the Meiji era. But how does doi relate to Han Shusho Shugi? Well, an argument they use is that giving consent to being born, and all it entails, is impossible. Fukano desu. You can't either infer that someone unborn would wish for it, if they could, because someone who doesn't exist yet, by definition, has no wishes, nozomi nashi, no goals, mokuhyou nashi, and no personal reason for being, ikigai nashi. So by definition it would be forcing your nozomi and mokuhyou on someone else. Now we will do a shadowing exercise using a sentence constructed using the conclusion of this reasoning. Because there's no consent, giving birth is unethical. Doi nashi kara umu no ga hi rinri teki desu. Say it with me. Doi nashi kara umu no ga hi rinri teki desu. Dai ni no concepto. Hitaisho, the asymmetry. The Japanese term for asymmetry is hitaisho. The latter part of the word, taisho, means symmetry. The former part, the prefix hi, much like mu, means none, but it differs in nuance. Mu means none, as in that it indicates a lack of what it's prefixing, while hi means none, as in that it indicates that it's not conforming to, or is the opposite to, what it's prefixing. Thereby, hitaisho means something that doesn't conform to symmetry, an asymmetry. This relates to antinatalism as one of the center arguments of David Benatar's book, Better Never to Have Been, which has been translated into Japanese as Umarete konai hoga yokata, is called the asymmetry argument. He argues that there is an asymmetry between the harms and benefits of the scenarios of existing and of never having existed. Scenario A. X exists. X ga sonzai suru. There's presence of pain. Itami ga aru, which is bad. Warui. There's presence of pleasure. Yorokobi ga aru, which is good. I. Scenario B. X never exists. X ga sonzai shinakata. There's absence of pain. Itami ga nai, which is good. I. There's absence of pleasure. Yorokobi ga nai, which is not bad. Warukunai. Now let's do a shadowing exercise of the sentence. The asymmetry makes giving birth unethical. In other words, hitaisho kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Say it with me. Hitaisho kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Dai san no concepto. Jigoku no kanose. Possibility of hell. Possibility of hell translates to Jigoku no kanose in Japanese. Jigoku means hell and kanose means possibility, with the possessive particle no tying them together, functioning almost like the English word of. However, what makes it different from the English word of is that the order of the nouns that indicates which possesses which is reversed in Japanese. In other words, the term x of y becomes y no x in Japanese. We cannot be certain of what happens to us after death, since metaphysics are impossible to know the nature of, although many religions believe in hell as a place a person who's lived may go to for the rest of eternity. In other words, thereby, birthing a person makes the prospect of them suffering in hell forever a possibility. For some people, this is something they can't stand the thought of allowing, and thereby don't think of having children as a responsible thing to do. So it's time to make this into a shadowing exercise. The possibility of hell makes giving birth unethical. Jigoku no kanose kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Say it with me. Jigoku no kanose kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Dai 4 no concepto. Chikyu ondanka. Global warming. Chikyu means earth. Ondanka means warming. So together they mean earth warming. In other words, global warming. Let's talk about CO2 haishutsu ryo. CO2 means CO2, obviously. Haishutsu means emissions. Ryo means amount. So together it's CO2 emission amount. How much CO2 haishutsu ryo does having a child cause? According to one study, it's 9,441 metric tons. 9,441 is how to say that number, okay? 9,441, meaning this is something to consider. On the other hand, there's the prospect of someone being born into having to deal with the repercussions of the climate crisis. Kiko Kiki is the translation of the climate crisis. Kiko means climate and Kiki means crisis. So let's do a shadowing exercise. Because of global warming, having children is unethical. Chikyu ondanka kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. With me? Chikyu ondanka kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Dai 5 no concepto. Oyako no kaiso, the parent-child hierarchy. Kaiso plainly means hierarchy, but the more interesting word in my opinion is oyako. Japanese has one word that means parent and child, that's oyako. a child and a parent together. That's oyako. Oya means parent and ko means child. So together it directly translates to parent-child, but it means parent and child. There's actually a Japanese dish called oyakodon. It's a rice bowl, donburi, with chicken, toriniku, and egg, tamago. It's called oyakodon because the chicken is the parent and the egg is the child. Anarchists and antinatalists should really like this dish because it could symbolize a destruction of the parent-child hierarchy. Hierarchy is something criticized by anarchists, birth is something criticized by antinatalists. An anarchist antinatalist might criticize birth for necessitating a parent-child hierarchy, as the first thing a parent does to a child is to exercise authority over them by making their first choice for them. Anarchists often say they are only against unjust hierarchies, saying that a parent-child hierarchy is justified. An antinatalist might counter by saying that it's not justified as you could make the choice not to have the child at all, and circumventing the hierarchy. The hierarchy can express itself in many ways. The Japanese word for child abuse is jido gyakutai. Now it's time for one last shadowing exercise. This time saying, because of the parent-child hierarchy, giving birth is unethical. Oyako no kaisou kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Say it with me. Oyako no kaisou kara umu no ga hirinri teki desu. Great! Now we've learned a lot of terms, and I'm going to put some of the most important ones up on the screen and read them out loud. Please memorize these.反出生主義, antinatalism. Doi, consent. Itaisho, asymmetry. Jigoku, hell. Oyako, parent and child. Kaiso, hierarchy. Jido gyakutai, child abuse.反出生主義, antinatalism. Doi, consent. Hitaisho, asymmetry. Jigoku, hell. Oyako, parent and child. Kaiso, hierarchy. Jido gyakutai, child abuse. So now that you've watched all the way through, all I have left is to recommend you 2 Japanese songs that regards the subject we've talked about. But as for me, mata ne!